Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Hi, how you doing? Good that you're all here. New subscribers, new patrons. Lots been happening lately. Thank you for being here. Those who've been here for a while, very proud of your practice and your consistency. Stay with it. Just really proud of everyone. We are going to continue. We are still in chapter 7. I keep wanting to say the apparition of the, but it's oh, come on, what do they call it in this translation? Not the appearance. What the heck word do they use? The apparitional city. It's an interesting word, apparitional. It suggests to me, apparitional, that it is, well, we know Buddhism's about the mind. So apparitional would be, well, an apparition is like a mirage, something that we perceive, right? Something that our mind constructs. But to call it an apparitional city suggests that this is a consistent mechanism, a repeatable mechanism. And certainly we even, as much as we've talked about the fable nature, the wealthy man and the poor son and all that, we haven't talked about the city yet. So there's more than one apparitional conversation in this chapter. I'm just looking to see. Yeah, now on the jeweled stupa or the treasure tower, they don't use apparitional, they use the appearance of. I was curious because the appearance of they call it the jeweled stupa here, or the treasure tower as we're more commonly accustomed to referring to it. That's the Gohonzon, right? Not this mandala, but the treasure tower itself. It's our mental construct of opening to, availing us to our Buddhaness. So apparitional suggests something that isn't actually manifest, not in the physical sense anyway. Whereas in the physical sense, the Gohonzon is our mental construct, so it's an actual experience. A little different. Curious. Anyway, so let's get back into it. We just finished listening to the group talking to Buddha, saying, "Oh, Bhagavat, all of these immeasurable thousands of kotis of Shravakas of great merit have all attained perfection. O Bhagavat, you expound the teaching of the highest complete enlightenment to us. Hearing it, we shall practice it," so on and so forth, right? So at that time, continuing now, 8 myriads of kotis of people in the assembly who served the noble emperor saw the 16 princes renounce household life, which, as we know from previous readings, means leaves the affairs of the daily job and raising a family and all that, and pursues instead the life of a monk, right? A dedicated student. We don't have to do that today. That was an old, this is almost 3,000 years ago. It was still leftover from the early teachings of Buddhism, which incorporated earlier teachings than Buddhism, that the idea for a pursuant of higher spiritual awakening, be it mental or not, had to divorce themselves from the daily activities of commerce, sex, household, all these affairs, because the immersion into the spiritual path would just require all of your attention, right? So this is a common reference, not only in Buddhism. and appealed to the emperor to allow their own renunciation. The emperor immediately gave his permission. In other words, I won't expect taxes from you. Okay. Interesting. A lot of things that we take for granted, for instance, the institution of marriage as something, religions are very happy to take that on as something that they created and that means something spiritual. But marriage, if it was religious at all, was only by their advice to the management staff, the governance, in order to make more taxpayers. We'll give them a break because they're making us more workers and more taxpayers, more economic, right, producers. Then the Buddha accepted the request of the Shramaneras. After 20,000 kalpas he taught to the Fourfold Assembly this Mahayana Sutra called the Myoho Renge-kyo, the Lotus Sutra, the instruction for bodhisattvas and treasured lore of the Buddhas. So lore not meaning fake, but lore more like the storytelling, the teaching of the Dharma, which is not, the Dharma is not the teachings, it's the experience of Buddhaness. But you can't hand that to somebody. You can only direct them toward it, right? So they choose the word lore. Most likely because skillful means is storytelling, so therefore, right? All right. After the Buddha taught this sutra, all the 16, now this is, see, time is this weird thing in Buddhism. We just suddenly went past the whole book like we've already discussed it. So this is foretelling, once I'm done telling you this, then this. Because he's in the midst of the beginning of the Lotus Sutra right now. So now he's talking about what happens afterward. After the Buddha taught this sutra, all the 16 Shramaneras preserved, recited, and understood it in order to achieve highest complete enlightenment. When the Buddha taught this sutra, again, jumping to the future, all the 16 Shramaneras, the bodhisattvas, completely accepted it. There were also some among the Shravakas who believed it. Oh, they accepted it, but only some believed it. That's an interesting distinction, yeah? Again, it's about confidence, perseverance, knowing that you're instantiating Buddha when you're chanting to your mandala, to your mind, really. Mandala is just a mirror of your mind, yeah? And its potential. That is where the Gohonzon is found. But all the other thousands of myriads of kodas of sentient beings, they just became confused. An interesting problem. The Buddha continuously taught this sutra for 8,000 kalpas without stopping. After teaching this sutra, he immediately entered a quiet place and abided in meditation for 84,000 kalpas. Now, once again, this kind of harkens back to his own Shakyamuni's or Siddhartha Gautama's own enlightenment, doesn't it? It's interesting. At that time, each of the 16 Shramaneras, they live a long time, the bodhisattvas, knowing that the Buddha had entered the quiet place and was abiding tranquilly in meditation, ascended the Dharma seat and extensively taught and explained the Lotus Sutra to the Fourfold Assembly for 84,000 kalpas. Each of them saved 600 myriads of kodas of nayutas of sentient beings, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. By revealing and teaching it, they gladdened these sentient beings and awoke in them the thought of highest complete enlightenment. Having arisen from samadhi after 84,000 kalpas had passed, the Buddha Mahabhishnanana Bhibu approached the Dharma seat and sat down with complete mindfulness. He addressed everyone in the great assembly, saying, "These 16 Shramaneras Bodhisattvas are extraordinary. All their faculties are sharp and their wisdom is penetrating. In times past, they have paid homage to immeasurable thousands of myriad of kodas of Buddhas and have constantly practiced the pure path of discipline and integrity under them. They preserved, man, my eyes, the wisdom of the Buddhas and revealed it to sentient beings, causing them to enter into it. Why is this? If there are any Sravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Bodhisattvas who are able to believe and preserve the teaching in this sutra expounded by these 16 Bodhisattvas and not disparage it, they will all attain the wisdom of the Tathagata, highest complete enlightenment." Now, we practice Nichiren's elucidation of this sutra. And I just want to make note that when he says we believe and preserve this teaching, this is what Nichiren takes very literally as his charge to make certain, and every scholar since Shakyamuni has endeavored tremendously hard to make absolutely clear what Shakyamuni's teaching is, was, and how to practice it in accordance with, in other words, correctly, as it was taught. Not deviating in other matters, but that the entire goal is self-enlightenment. And being distracted by samsaric goals is absolutely not part of the teaching, right? The only part of the teaching is liberating ourselves from that. So whenever you find instruction that says you can have whatever you want, that's not Buddhism. The only thing to want in Buddhism is awakening, enlightenment. From that is the source from which life becomes abundant, wonderful, and fully experienced. Complete and perfect enlightenment. Ta-da! The Buddha addressed the monks saying, quote, "These 16 bodhisattvas always willingly taught the Lotus Sutra, the Myoho Renge-kyo. Each bodhisattva has inspired 600 myriads of kodas of nayutas of sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. In life after life, in moment after moment, they remained with these bodhisattvas, and hearing this teaching from them, they believed and understood. For this reason, they were able to meet 4 myriads of kodas of Buddhas, Bhagavats, during a period uninterrupted up to the present." During the period uninterrupted up to the present. He's still talking about this assembly, the sermon in the sky, yes? They haven't gone anywhere. They don't have a time travel machine, but the hyperbole of time and its flexibility is used to great effect here to impress upon everyone that this isn't just an occasional happenstance, that this is a motive force of life. And so time becomes irrelevant and relevant. Samsara, relevant, irrelevant, Buddhaness. It's a component of conceptualizing the vastness and the straightforwardness of Buddhaness. O monks, I shall now tell you that these 16 Shramaneras, disciples of that Buddha, Mahabhishnanana Bhibu, have now attained highest complete enlightenment and presently teach the Dharma in the lands of the 10 directions. There are immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of bodhisattvas and shravakas who have become their attendants. In other words, this teaching because it's inherent in us, but he hasn't quite said that yet, is everywhere. Again, if you don't know that, it's because you haven't awakened to the truth yet. Two of these Shramaneras have become Buddhas in the East. One is called Akshobhya in the land called Abhirati, and the other is called Merukutta in the southeast. There are two Buddhas. One is called Shimagosa, and the other is called Shimadvaja. In the south, there are two Buddhas called Akashpritishita and Nitya Parinirvarta. These are obviously, you can tell by the names being so different for these different parts. India is divided into many, many, almost sub-countries. They have their own languages. Seriously, people from certain parts of India who go to other parts of India, they speak nationally recognized languages, and they can't understand one another. It's amazing. There's something like 126 distinct language, not dialects, languages in India. It's crazy. But that's important to note, because that tells you how isolated certain parts of India are from the rest of India, how they're culturally different, yet they all fall under the rubric of Asian Indian, yeah? So you can imagine, as certain teachings travel throughout India, that there are many interpretations, many languages interpreting the sermons, repeating the sermons. Yeah, it's not just English, French, Spanish, and on and on. You know, it's quite a cacophony. And so I bring that up because these names are probably inventions that speak to the dialects or the languages of those areas, right? There are also two Buddhas in the southwest. One is called Indradvaja, and the other is called Brahmadvaja. In the west, there are two Buddhas. Oh my goodness, he's going to hit every point of the compass. Called Amitayus and Sharva Lokadute. Oh my goodness, that one's long. It goes into the next sentence. I didn't see how long that was. Let's give it a try just so I can say I did. Sharva Lokadatu Padravodega Pratya Tirna. Grow up with that name. There are two Buddhas in the northwest. One is called another. I'm not even going to try. Too many letters. The other is called Merukalpa. Now, you know, this translation is trying to remain faithful to the Chinese translation of the Indian dialect, or I keep saying dialect, the Indian language that was used, whether it was Pali or Sanskrit. But this was Kumarajiva's Chinese translation. And a lot of scholarship in other sutras and so forth, in this sutra as well, in the Lotus Sutra, you'll say, well, I don't remember reading some 40-letter name in the Lotus, my copy of the Lotus Sutra. Well, that's true, because successive academics have reduced, you know, many of these, if you knew the language they were translated from, would be basically sentences that were a combination of concepts added together to make, right, a singular, it's kind of like a package of name, right, rather than a single identifier. It's several identifiers to create a conceptual understanding of the person. So these names get really long. And there are some scholars who have substituted those long sentences of names into a more modern, if you will, word to indicate that conceptual framework. And, so the words we often read in other translations are those, you could call them simplifications, yeah? But there's the same person, and ultimately, these are stories. So whether you call her a Little Red Riding Hood or the Red Cap girl, does it matter to the story? Not really, right? No one's going to create a genealogy of all of these people because they're a story device. All right. And the 16th one is myself, Buddha Shakyamuni. And that name, Sharvaloka, that's the longest one yet, who in this Saha world achieved highest complete enlightenment. So he's identifying himself once now, again, not only from some lineage in this story, trying to illustrate the length of time that is unknowable, that the Dharma experience has been available, has been within the consciousness of the mind, yet asleep. It's, in other words, what I have achieved in this Saha world in my lifetime, it ain't new. He's already giving them big clues about Buddhaness and their own inherent nature of it, but he hasn't really made it specific. Although, this seems awfully specific, right? He's making it very obvious. I ain't the first one who's attained Buddhahood. You keep calling me Buddha. I keep speaking as Buddhaness. But Shakyamuni, in reality, if you're going to follow the terminology, is a bodhisattva. Fully enlightened, following the Buddha way. But as a samsaric being, he's a bodhisattva. Speaking Buddha. But that distinction hasn't been made completely clear yet. And tell me he's not knocking at the door right now, yeah? O monks, when we were Shamaneras, each of us inspired immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kotis of sentient beings equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River. Now he's saying what I say to you all the time. When we work on our enlightenment, invoking our Buddhaness and hanging on to it, we have an aura of this Buddhaness that follows us around, that emanates from us. And others are touched by it. The environment is not a separate thing as we would samsarically think of it. But with Buddhaness, we penetrate and engage with all energy, from quiescent to form, yeah? So in that, and this pertains to a recent question about world peace, in that, as we work to perfect ourselves, that self expands to include everything in the environment, not just your dog and your neighbors and your house and your friends, the planets, the solar system, the galaxy, the universe. Yeah, I know. It seems mystical, but it's not. It's quite real. Everything is dependent origination. The cliche is we're all connected, but that sounds like, I don't know, phone lines, yeah? That's not what it means. It means at the subatomic level, we are all the same energy, manifest in various tendencies. That's the truth of it. So when he says, when we were Shamaneras, in other words, while we were student monks dedicated to learning this Dharma and all the dharmas, all the experiences of life. Each of us inspired immeasurable hundreds of thousands of myriads of kodas of sentient beings, equal in number to the... Because there are people we don't even know who, by our efforts, are being slowly massaged mentally into seeking this perfection, this complete knowledge, experience. Those sentient beings who heard the teaching from me attained highest complete enlightenment. There are sentient beings who still abide in the stage of Sravaka and whom I will inspire to attain highest complete enlightenment. Students at different stages, yeah. By means of this teaching, they will gradually enter the Buddha path. Why is this? The wisdom of the Tathagatas is hard to believe and hard to understand. I don't like the word believe, but you understand what he's saying, right? Hard to understand, hard to take confidence in, much better way to say it, and hard to understand. Those incalculable sentient beings, equal in number to the sands of the Ganges River, who were inspired at that time, were you, O monks, and those disciples who will be Shravakas in the future after my parinirvana, after I'm gone. After my parinirvana, there will be disciples who will not hear this sutra and will neither know or understand the bodhisattva practice, yet through the merit they have acquired, the thought of extinction will awaken them and they will enter parinirvana. In other words, the influence of those who practice Myoho Renge Kyo, though they may not be there in their time, will awaken in them due to the fact that it will become more and more obvious that the fantasy of an afterlife or eternity is just that. And knowing that this is the only life you get will be a motivator. What do you know? Right? When did it happen to you? When it first occurred that, oh crap, this is it. I don't want to waste any more time, nor should you. Yeah. I will become a Buddha in another land with a different name. Although the idea of extinction has awoken in these disciples and they have entered parinirvana in that land, they will still seek the wisdom of the Buddhas and will then be able to hear this sutra. They can obtain parinirvana only through the Buddha vehicle. There are no other vehicles except the one taught through the skillful means of the Tathagatas. Where are we time-wise? Okay, time to close out here. O monks, when the Tathagata realizes that the time of his parinirvana is approaching, knowing that the assembly is pure, firm in conviction and understanding, has penetrated the teaching of emptiness, and has deeply entered meditation, he will then gather the assembly of bodhisattvas and shravakas together and teach this sutra to them. In this world, there is no second vehicle through which one can attain parinirvana, right? The nirvana of no remainder. Only through the single Buddha vehicle can one attain it. And that's a good place to pause here. So in a real way, he's repeating what he's been saying all along. And I'm sure, yeah, we're going to get into this verse portion here. So we should be able to finish this chapter in the next video. And then we will move on to the 500 disciples receive their predictions. Now, these first few chapters may seem a bit repetitive. This is part of the skillful means as well, if you haven't picked up on that. It's not that there's one story and all this meaning comes out of it. There's a lot of meaning, explanation to go into everyone's different perceptions, right? Innumerable meanings of the same topic taught with various stories so that we each get our insights dependent on our experience of samsara from these different ideas of time, ideas of place, the story about wealth, social position, right? And we're not through yet. The next chapter with the 500 predictions, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It can seem tedious because the repetition, as we've already seen. But there's also some merit to that. So I don't want to just idly skip through stuff because it seems tedious. We are, after all, reading the Lotus Sutra, and the various translations will have a different kind of flavor to them, which will appeal to each one of us differently. Yeah. So I don't want to skip over something that may be critical for some of our Sangha. In the meantime, while you wait, I want to thank once again new patrons that are shifting their membership, patrons that are going straight through PayPal, or those of you patrons who have bought ebooks. Those I may put, I'll just say it here. People who are donating on Patreon, $10 or more. I've been sending a PDF version of the Buddhism Reference, just as a thank you. I can do that because it's mine. So there's. I should probably put that in the definition on Patreon. I get a little tired of programming things. When they get obsolete, maybe in 2 years there'll be a volume 2, and I'll rather send that out. I don't know. So right now, that's what I'm doing. So if that's an encouragement to take on that responsibility, that's great. Whatever motivates you, whatever you can do, right? Otherwise, just take a few seconds to like and subscribe. That helps a lot. That's a bodhisattva act as well. All right, enough with the propagation talk, although that's what we're here for. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Thanks again. Take care of your health. Be kind. And I'll see you in the next video, all right? Good for you. Stay strong in your practice, right? Savor it. Bye for now.